fire's gonna fall on us. Oh, the fire's gonna fall. Every heart will know the love of God.
Nice to. What are you joking about? What is it? I was asked what my talk was going to be about, and I did my classic answer, Jesus. So sometimes the choir people ask what the sermon is going to be about, so they can pick music, and that's my answer, Jesus. I did that to one music director, and I'm from the U.S., but don't hold that against me. So in Oregon, he actually said, "Oh, I can work with that." Began thumbing through the hymnal. I'm going, Paul, I'm joking. I mean, it's always about Jesus, but that really is just not the theme of everything. But it's always a good answer. What are you preaching about? What are you singing about Jesus? That's precisely. And they were asking what the title was like. Well, I don't know what the title is. I don't even know exactly what I'm supposed to be talking about. That much direction we received in some senses. But I decided to title it Sandal-Clad and Slightly Confused, Walking in the Way of Jesus in Dubai. So most of you know, or maybe you don't know, I'm Father James, whatever you want to call me. I get called all sorts of names. I've been a parish priest long enough, so my favorite is when they ask me, what do you want us to call you, Father, Reverend? I say, well, Papa is my preference, but very few people actually call me Papa, but for good reason. I wonder why, yes. But we're really here to... what? Reverend Young, yes. My problem was when I was ordained, no one wanted to call me some of those things because I was young. Of course, now I'm by name I'm still young, but not by age, chronologically challenged in some respects, or getting older. But we're here to talk, it really is about Jesus, but I'm from the Diocese of Cyprus and the Gulf. It's in the province of Jerusalem and the Middle East. Archbishop Osam was our diocesan bishop by default. I don't think he wanted to be because we only had 2 bishops in the entire province, and when ours retired, by default he became our diocesan bishop as well, which of course, if you know anything about Jerusalem, it was a busy time. So he was ready to hand it off as soon as possible, I think. And now, one of your own, he came out of this diocese actually, Sean Simple. He was ordained in this diocese, became our bishop a year and a half ago or something like that. He had spent some time here, was ordained here, and then 2 years in Cyprus, and then went to the UK for, I forget how many years, 5, 10 years, I forget. I lose track of bishops, or I try to, anyway. But he's our bishop now, so there's a connection with our diocese, and our Archdeacon of the Gulf is Mark Derry, who came out of South Africa as well. No, I'm not sure which diocese. Port Elizabeth, so you know Mark is I know he knows a lot of people here, him and his wife. So we have a connection. It's a unique place. I'll just tell you a little bit about that and my walk with Jesus there. We actually applied there on a lark. Basically we thought, we saw the advertisement, it's like, oh, well, maybe we'll get a free holiday out of it, because we've never been to that part of the world before. The funny thing, divine sense of humor, God has a wonderful sense of humor, is we fell in love with it just after a few days. We felt a strong sense of call. I've never felt that strong sense of call in terms of ordination. Not marriage, my wife is here, so I have to say that, little disclaimer, until then. And it was such a strong sense of call. I was offered the position, that sense of that calling, that evening after the interview. But I went to sleep that night, and it sounds melodramatic, I know it does. My soul in silence weeps tonight. I'm not that melodramatic of a guy, but that's what was going through my mind, because there seem to be so many obstacles to us going there, and it's halfway around the world. We ended up just taking it a step at a time, a day at a time, and it ended up working out, although we still left on my wife's birthday. We arrived on 28th of August, and I did not have a signed contract, letter of appointment, or any of those things that normally, at least from my tradition in the U.S., you would have that maybe a few months ahead of time and you got time to plan. But we took it on faith. But again, looking back, that seems like the dumbest, stupidest thing in the world to do, in one sense, move halfway around the world. But it all worked out. And my joke is if I weren't an Anglican, I'd almost think that God was in this call. Because we tend to discount God at times because of our sophistication or, doing it the right way and decency and in good order. You've heard those phrases, I'm sure. But God works in mysterious ways. And we've been there 6 years now. We've only been back twice to the U.S., so that's a sense of loss we feel at times. Although our children are older, they probably do not feel the sense of loss that we do because they have their own lives and busy and all sorts of things. But we really feel that way. And I'll share this, my wife developed asthma there because of all the construction, and all the growth, because there's tremendous growth in Dubai. And sand, but concrete, you name it, it's not the best place in one sense. But again, still to this day, she will say she still a strong sense of call to there. Now, we are in I like to say sometimes, a simple country parson in the big city of Dubai. I want to say the Vicar of Dubai, if you're familiar with the Vicar of Dibley or something like that. And Jebel Ali is a small, it's a port area, part of the Emirate of Dubai. There's 7 emirates in the UAE. Dubai is the commercial hub of the Emirates. Jebel Ali it really was not much of anything for a long time. In fact, where the church is located, it was out in the desert. It really was out from the main part of Dubai. 23 years ago when it was founded, it was desert and you just parked on the sand and you got there the best way you could on some of the crude roads. I hate to admit this, but part of it is I was ready to get away from certain things in the U.S. That's why God has a weird sense of humor too, because I'm not ready to do certain things, but I feel called to go to this place, and obviously I'm not good at discernment. I joke about, saying, because guess what? Dubai is moving all over Jebel Ali because there's been that much growth in the Emirates. They're expecting 1 million people, new people, moving into Dubai in the next 20 years where we're located. So it's like so much for getting away from certain things and certain callings. Well, you can run, but you can't hide, from God. So God has a fabulous sense of humor in one sense as well. But there's tremendous opportunities. 85 to 90% of the people in Dubai and the UAE are expats from around the world. There's over 200 different nationalities. I don't know how I could ever go back, to the U.S. where we all look the same. Okay, it thrills us to look out in that richness of cultures. Now, it makes it difficult at times because how do you create a cohesive community where there's so many transitions? We lose about a quarter of the people every 3 years or so, or every 4 years. So you're always doing leadership development, trying to figure out how to move forward. But we also, half of our congregation probably are not Anglican at heart. Okay, but maybe may be the closest thing to their tradition. But even among Anglicans, we share a lot in common, but we do things slightly differently. So how do you create a sense of community? Well, that's not how we did it in our Anglican church in India or in South Africa, because we have a number of South Africans, or the UK or wherever they're from, parts of Southeast Asia, the Philippines. So how do you create some type of community with that? It's one of the most difficult things in the world, but it's what we're called to do. It's also beautiful because they have what's called a minister of tolerance in the UAE, which is wonderful. We learn to tolerate other people. But how would that go across if after years of marriage I've learned to tolerate my wife, or vice versa. She learns to tolerate me. Tolerance is a good thing and it helps us to keep worship together. But really, what we in the Christian, when we talk about being Christians, is we don't tolerate each other, we embrace our differences, and you enrich us because of those differences. It can be challenging, don't get me wrong, but it really does. When you really have that mindset, it makes for a challenge, but an exciting group of Christians trying to figure out how they grow in the knowledge and love of Jesus Christ together. And that's beautiful, most of the time. Challenging other times. Most of the challenge, by the way, has to do with governance than anything. How do we govern our church? Who makes decisions? How much church council? How much the priest? It's really those things are the challenge for us, not so much the worship, because we try to enrich in that respects. But that is probably the biggest challenge we have. But half of there's about 10 million people in the UAE. Half are probably Muslim. We cannot evangelize Muslims. That's just part of the territory. You have to accept that. But that's no excuse. That's absolutely no excuse whatsoever, because there's still plenty of people out there. But what you have to do is be creative. So how do you be Christian? How do you evangelize in a Muslim country where it's illegal in many respects? Actually, it's illegal, just so you know, to go outside of the building to evangelize. I can wear my collar. In fact, I don't even have to wear my collar now, because most people would know, oh, Father, because there aren't as many of us, so we're known. So you can't get away with anything. That's good or bad. But it's like, I can't. But I joked with the youth when I was with them. I don't wear my collar when I drive. I don't know if you know why. Well, basically it's because I'm a very aggressive driver. I figure I'm a bad witness for Jesus if I wear my collar. In the U.S., I did not wear it either. But we can put bumper stickers. We can't put bumper stickers in Dubai. They have controls. But I used to put "The Baptist Church welcomes you" on the back of my car, because that's okay. I'll be a bad witness for them, but I'll take my collar off. And my wife would swear to this too. She holds on to the bar. She calls it the Jesus bar. She prays to Jesus a lot when I drive. But imagine that and these are my people. I joke about how we drive. But imagine 9 places of worship all in one compound, because you're not spread out around the city. We're in one place. We have one other compound on the other side of the city where there's some churches, but there's 9 of us from Roman Catholic, Anglican, Evangelical, Syrian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Coptic Christians, Hindu temple, a Gurdwara, Sikh. So you have 9 different places of worship all in one place. And we have 2 things that unite us. Parking and traffic. You will lose your faith easily when you try to get in and out of traffic. One Easter, I even had to have one of the caretakers at the church come out and meet me, because I could walk faster to get into church. And I'm looking at the time. I've got 5 minutes to vest to get ready for a major Easter service. And he came out and got the car, because we do have a car park underneath, which is good, for about 50 cars. Still not that many. There's been tremendous growth in our part of the world, because Expo was there a few years back. COP28 was held there as well. And it's all pulling the city in that direction. And the new airport will be opening up in that part of town too. So it's tremendous opportunities, but you cannot go outside to bear witness to Jesus, other than if you're wearing a collar, wearing a cross. Lay people can do that. Our teens, I give them basically prayer beads on a bracelet, because they can wear that. It reminds them to pray. And the beautiful thing is, you're often reminded to pray, because the call to prayer. It's a beautiful thing, and most of it, if you understood, and I don't speak Arabic, but most of it is praise to God. Nothing that we would have problems with. But even if you didn't, it's still a call to prayer. It reminds us as Christians we should be praying without ceasing too, not just 5 times a day, but we pray a lot more. We also evangelize. I have evangelized more in a Muslim country than I have ever done in 23 years prior to that. Now I'm getting about to 28, 29 years in my entire ministry. And you may ask, how can we do that if we can't go off-site? Well, we do it because people come, if they come through our doors, everything's fair game. I've done, in 6 years there, I've done 937 weddings. Yes. Now, it's because they had no other place to go, but to me, that's evangelism. You have to be creative in how you're going to evangelize. Because once you walk through those doors, I can talk to you now about Jesus. You're in my territory now. You're fair game. And so we preach Jesus to them, and we talk about it. I've only turned down one wedding the entire time I was there, and that's because they wanted me to take out two words: God and Jesus. I said, I can't do that, and so you can, it would actually have to be a British couple. You go to the British Embassy and they will marry under those circumstances, because what you're looking for is a secular wedding, not a sacramental wedding. And then that helps us build relationships with these people over time too. And like I said, you can talk about Jesus, because now you walk through those doors, it's fun. Yeah? Yeah, expats, 85 to 90% of the people in Dubai are expats from around the world. There's over 200 different nationalities in Dubai. And that's a beautiful thing. It really is. But they're at different stages in their faith and their journey. And so what we're doing is, what I say, we're planting seeds of the gospel. Sometimes we won't see the fruition of that because they may transition out 2 or 3 years. But again, sometimes they're going to have children, and then they come and they'll be baptized. Oh, you again. Let's talk again now. And then I tell them it's really kind of a threat. Since you're wanting to have your child baptized, that's giving me permission to keep contacting you, because we're making these vows, and we're saying we're going to support you in your walk, the child's walk in Christ. So guess what? If I do not follow up on this, I'm not doing my calling. I'm not living into my calling. So again, it's permission for me to do something and to proclaim the gospel. So that's why I say I've evangelized more there than I ever did in the U.S. or any other setting, because of that uniqueness. You have to be creative. How do you walk as a Christian in Dubai? First of all, that's how I do it, how I live out my faith. But how do some ordinary people? Because priests and bishops are not ordinary people. But most ministry happens what you're doing. It's not the people wearing the collar. We're here to support you on that journey of faith. But y'all are the ones out, because guess what? Y'all are scattered around different businesses, different industries around a city, bearing witness to Jesus. And even in a Muslim country. But any situation, you can do it in your own way. But be creative about it if you need to. Because most of us are not. The reason I jokingly say I was raised a Baptist, and I went to university and discovered the Anglican Church, the beauty of the liturgy, the history, and I fell in love with it. I tell my mom, who's still a Baptist, I said, well, I grew up and I matured. That's why I became Anglican. She doesn't always appreciate my humor, but we go back and forth with each other. But you bear witness the way you're able to. And when people ask questions, and they'll ask what you do for the weekend, but also it's how you live your life. There's incredible wealth in Dubai. Have you ever been to Dubai? Okay, well, there's incredible wealth. There really is. But there's also incredible poverty. That's what people don't realize. It's all hidden. It's like a facade. Now, the wealth is really Dubai. It really is. Okay, we can do blessings off-site. They allow us to do that. I don't know why, but it's allowed. I actually did a blessing for the Real Housewives of Dubai. It was off-site. So if you want to see it, season 1, episode 7, you'll see me, my claim to fame. But so you do those things. And it does exist, and they're off the chart wealthy, okay? But there's also off the chart poverty. What we don't have in Dubai is you don't have unemployment per se. Because if you're not working, you're out of there. So you have to be employed, but that's also a way in which they control a lot of people. Because if you were to complain, especially if you're a lower income worker and complaining, you're disposable. We can get someone else who has the proper attitude. What? Let's send you back home. Yeah, wherever you're from, those 200 different nations, they'll send you back home. Now, here's the other kicker. Every expat there is disposable. Doesn't matter your income level, because you can be replaced. Yeah, the money protects you somewhat because Dubai is capitalism on steroids. As long as you understand that, you can, you understand the culture quite a bit in Dubai. But even the attorneys, the doctors, they can be disposable. You can be gone. I know now I have a 2-year visa and it gets renewed. It used to be 3, but they learned you can make more money by doing this every 2 years instead of every 3 years. So in a 6-year cycle, we get more money. But they can tell me and Cheryl, today, you're no longer welcome. And don't have to give you a reason. And you have to leave. It doesn't matter. So we're all disposable. Can you imagine the spiritual, what that does to you spiritually, to say, someone looks at you and say, you're disposable. You are disposable. Yeah, and it's like, how do the wealthy deal with that? Well, they buy Lamborghinis. There's a Lamborghini with the license tag. We had a picture of her beside it just for the fun of it. It's sits, if you're familiar with that. So we just kind of laughed at that one. But they get it, they drink too much. A lot of times the cars are status symbols. The home may be nothing to write home about. We use that expression in the US. Very modest, but the car out in front is a Lamborghini. And the reason is simple. Is because they'll never be invited to your home when they see the car you drive into work. And they sacrifice and they get into trouble. They get into trouble because if they default, they can go to prison. They really don't have any way of dealing with those money issues. The solution is if you default on something, prison. You know, they don't have bankruptcy in the same way some of us might be familiar with. The lower income people, they're living 8 to a room. If you drive down a major, beautiful road, the main drag, E11 Sheikh Zayed Road, not far from where the church is, and all these gleaming towers, but behind all that are men and women living in squalor, basically. You know, and some of it's, well, basically human trafficking. Now, the euphemism, and I learned this from Anglicans Alliance, if you're familiar with them, because they host it, it's safe migration. You know, it's a safe migration, but it's really human trafficking, because they'll often take your passports, and you can't leave. So we work with some of those individuals, because we have some barristers in the parish who will coach them of how to get their passport back, because that's a means of control. It's incredibly safe in Dubai. You could walk out at 3 a.m. anywhere in Dubai, a woman can, and feel perfectly safe. There's cameras everywhere, even in the church itself. We have cameras that are facial recognition and pick up on voices. We just had to put them in January. There's like 10 inside the sanctuary itself. But it's safe for a variety of reasons. One is that they don't allow guns and some of that, you know, and but if you do something wrong, guess what's going to happen to you? What? Yeah, they'll nab you, but they won't necessarily put you in prison. They'll send you back home, because that would cost us money if we put you in prison. But if you send you back home, it means, guess what? The travesty is it's not just that you get sent back home, but that means your family that you left, because some of them are, and that's why they're incredibly lonely, because they left their spouse, male or female, because it depends, and children back in their home country. And if I do something, even if it's just for a little bit of money, I get sent back, my family starves. And they know that, and so it's a means of control. I dropped a little bit of money, nothing worth anything, in the car once. We were going to, actually it was for a children's home in Tanzania. One of our parishioners had helped found, because that's where he grew up, is, and I dropped it, and they took a picture of it, you know, and and showed it to me when I came back. Here it is, sir, just so you know, sir, we didn't do anything. It's like, I didn't know I dropped it. but they were probably fearful that he's trying to nab them or something. So in one sense, it's not a good thing, but it is safe because if they do anything, they could be sent home, and it's loss, and it could be death for some of the children, especially, but for their spouse as well. It's an incredibly exciting place to do ministry. People laugh, arguably, because I say, technically I'm with the Episcopal Church, which is the Anglican Church in the U.S. I'm a missionary. I'm a missionary to Dubai, which makes people chuckle a lot, which I understand that, because we have this image of Dubai, but when you really get to know this other part is really Dubai as well. All of it is Dubai. Extreme wealth, extreme poverty. So,
people that go to church, aren't they more serious about it because they've come from elsewhere, so therefore they try to find the church in a Muslim.
Precisely. I mean, church is not an accessory, for lack of a better term. To accessorize our life or image, you have to want to, because first of all, you have to travel to these compounds where we are and deal with traffic and parking. You have to work at it, but they're longing. It's one thing, they take their faith seriously in ways I'd never seen before. Because they're not doing it because of expectations of family or friends, because guess what? They left all their family and friends, so you don't have to do that. So they're doing it for themselves, which means that, this sounds terrible, in one sense, but do you know how many people, how do I put this, have come to Jesus since I've been there in 6 years, as opposed to all those other years of ministry in other places? It means you have coffee with them, you're talking with them, it's a journey. One gentleman we had coffee about once a month, talking about his faith or lack of faith, but his journey. And then he moved to Saudi and got baptized there. Our diocese is in Saudi as well, by the way, 9 different countries, which makes it difficult even for a diocesan cohesion. And Cyprus is where the diocesan offices are, but that's only about maybe 10% of the people. But when it was founded 50 years ago, it was Cyprus and the Gulf were about the same size, and everything, but oil was discovered and Gulf took off like this. Now that's the anomaly in our diocese too. Guess who gets 50% of the votes in the diocese? Still Cyprus. So that's one of those issues we're wrestling with when 90% of the people, 90% of the funds are here, but we get outvoted, all the time on different issues. And sometimes they're important issues because Cyprus is much more of a retirement haven for British expats, for example, and there's nothing wrong with that. But ours skews young. We'll have, I think this past Sunday we had about 55 kids on our carpet. I do a children's sermon every week. It's more of a transition. We talked about St. Francis, this past week because I had the blessing of the animals. And then they go off to Sunday school. But that's unknown. The youth group in Cyprus begins around age 65. So you see, those are the challenges we have. But the beautiful thing is, like you said, when people contact us or there's a funeral, they're searching. So you really have wonderful conversations and helping people on their journey to Christ. There are a lot of young adults, yes, and young families, which again is an anomaly in many Anglican provinces around the world, in one sense, because we're skewing older and older, but not there because of the jobs and the opportunities. What questions might you have of me?
Is Malta part of the diocese?
No.
The island of Malta?
No, they're Europe. We have Cyprus is the closest thing we have. Then we have basically, we call it Canterbury group, but it's Saudi, but you really can't call it Saudi because it's illegal there. But Canterbury, Bahrain, Iraq is part of our diocese. We went there 2 years ago to visit them and fell in love with the people. People are people everywhere. Okay, all of us are wanting a better life for ourselves and our families. We're pretty simple in one sense. We have Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Doha. What?
Israel?
No, we're in the province of Jerusalem in the Middle East. So we're part of that province. And there's only 2 working dioceses. As I understand it, you're supposed to have like 4 dioceses to have a province, but we've only got 3 working. Well, actually, we have 2 working dioceses, because we also have the Diocese of Iran, which is not functioning right now. And even if they do appoint a bishop at some point in time, there'll be more of a missionary bishop, so it's going to take how many years, 20, 30, 40 years for it ever to be functioning, because a lot of the Christians would have left. That's the problem in Iraq too. They had about 1 million Christians before Desert Storm and all of those issues, and about 750,000 of the Christians left because they could afford it, or they had family in other parts of the world, which also means those who are left are the poorest of the poor. They had no escape. They can't. So the church needs to be there the same way in Gaza. Archbishop Osam, they need it, because they can't. They need help from others of us who can do more. And in fact, we are one of the most blessed congregations, I would say, in the Gulf or the Middle East. But it's demographics. It's where we are. We're fortunate because of that. But that means we have a great responsibility to help, to proclaim the gospel there, establish new churches. We can't establish churches, by the way, in hotels. So that's one of the ways in which we may be looking to grow is let's be Anglicans. I'm saying this because I know a few spouses of bishops or bishop. It's like we're not good at being proactive. We tend to be more reactive, that type of thing. But we need to be proactive. Where is the growth? How can we lean into that? Be the first movers in those places. Because people are searching, and I'm convinced, we have a saying in the U.S., I drank the Kool-Aid. It's spiked or something, but I'm a true believer in what we have to offer. We value questions. We value the journey you have. You don't have to pretend that you're perfect. Because none of us are perfect, but Jesus loves us, and we love you, and we are open and inclusive in a way that other groups are not, and that's part of the reason I became Anglican as well. So there's incredible opportunities for mission and ministry, and really in our diocese, the Dubai, Sharjah metro area has probably the 80% of the Anglicans even. But I still thought when I went there, I'm going out to Nazareth. Anything good come out of Nazareth? Can anything good come out of Jebel Ali? I can't make that joke any longer, by the way. As of like 2 or 3 years ago, I had to stop making that joke because it's the place to be. But it's an accident of, from my perspective as a priest, it's an accident of. But we've grown from about 130 after COVID to about, we had 243 this last Sunday. But when you also think you're losing 35 to 40 people minimum, we did this year over the summer months, because they just were rotating back. That's not even for the full year, although that's a big transition time. That's a lot of growth of new people coming in, and how do you incorporate them into the life of the church? And we have challenges with that. We have challenges with that with people who are not Anglican either, but how do you incorporate them into the life of the church? Because they want to keep their church in Lebanon, for example, hypothetically speaking. Actually, we have an example of that, not hypothetically. How do we incorporate them without them giving up their being a part of the National Evangelical Church of Beirut, being a part of that because that's who they are, but also be a part of us? But that has to do with governance again, which I hate to admit this in front of bishops or those type of things, but I'm a pastoral priest. It's like I want to. How do we bring people in? It's the bishops and others who need to worry about good order and and that type of thing, because they need to. They're defender of the faith. That's their role. One of their roles. But again, I want to welcome and say, Pastor, how do we bring you? How do we include you into the life of the church as fully as possible, and still stay within the rules, perhaps, or the rubrics of the church? But we should be radically welcoming and inclusive.
Do you come across Christian home groups?
Yes. Yeah, and technically we can have home groups, we call them. You're not supposed to have Bible studies offsite. You're not supposed to have prayer meetings. But of course, home groups are kind of, It's sort of like there's an old joke about some monk was asking his, the superior about, is it okay if I pray when I smoke? The answer is no, but you should always pray. No, it's the other way around, I think. Can I smoke when I'm praying? And the bishop, whoever says, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, can I do it the other way around? Yes, you should always pray. So it's semantics somewhat, and you have to be careful with semantics, how we call certain things. But no, don't get me wrong, there's probably at least, we don't know, but probably at least 200 to 300 illegal churches that meet in various places. I'm not a big supporter of that because we have what's called a trade license. There's only like 13 of them in Dubai, and that we host. There's like 6,000 to 7,000 different churches or people who come into our complex every Friday through Sunday. 43 guest congregations. They are Ethiopian Orthodox. There's like 1,500 of them who will come in and pack out the place. And because our church will seat about 700 on the main auditorium, but we have like 3 rooms upstairs, 250, 275 each. It's also our great source of our income. It allows us. It's like having an endowment almost, recurring. So it's very.
You're sharing the facility.
We share it because if there are some we have everything. Pentecostals, charismatic, because we say you're our sisters and brothers in Christ, even when we don't agree with you on everything. I jokingly say, I don't agree with myself half the time. Or I even finish a sermon and I think, oh, that was silly, why did I say that? But if you're 99.9% in agreement with the evangelicals next door, they'll tell you can't meet here because that 1/100th is, you're not pure enough. And we're going to say, come on, let's love each other. And so it's a gift that the Anglican Church offers to these other churches as well. It helps us too, obviously, but I think that's part of, even if we didn't, even if we just broke even, we should be doing it because you're our sisters and brothers in Christ. But there are illegal churches that meet. We had one meeting in one part of town when I first got there. It was only getting like 3 people. Because it was illegal meeting upstairs, you can't advertise it, and I got called into the government authorities, and I thought, they're gonna catch me on something, but they were asking about 2 other congregations that were probably meeting illegally, But I took it as a message too that they're taking it seriously because they just don't want to confront. Because there is an Arab way they don't want to say no. And they'll almost tell you even the wrong directions instead of telling you, I don't know. I mean, it's cultural, okay? So they don't want to say no to you sometimes or reprimand you directly. Like we have a question about just a certain issue, and they're not answering. Normally they would answer because we have a good relationship with them and all that. But my guess is they don't want to say no because the national law says you have to be over 40 years old and 5 years in the UAE to serve on council. Well, that's a very specific number. You have to read the national law. We had one person who was 32. That type of thing. And so my theory is they just don't want to say no. So, yes.
Are you able, as the church, to go outside of the compound and I hear you said you've got preach and so on and so forth, but to care for others, particularly those in the lower socioeconomic areas, as Christians, in terms of sort of food parcels or soup kitchens, whatever? And if you aren't able to do that legally, how can you do that?
That's a good question because we used to go to. We called them labor accommodations, labor camps, that sounds worse, but labor accommodations. We used to go there and deliver food items, packets, and all of that, but they've cracked down on that more and more. We used to have Reverend Daniel, who was from Pakistan, who spoke. I love Reverend Daniel, but seeing him in the church, it was kind of awkward. I'm the opposite. Seeing me in his setting, I'm the awkward one. Because it's where you're called and how you're able to live it out. So you talk about we have different gifts for ministry. He was a natural in those settings. But we had to stop that because they were cracking down a lot more. Now we can go out. Believe it or not, there was flooding in Dubai a year and a half ago. It sounds funny. It's a desert, but they had flooding. I mean, really shut down the airport even. This is major when you're talking about economics. But we took partials out, and the only instruction was, knee-deep, water, is you can't identify as Christians. You're a group of friends, because you can help people, but you just can't advertise. I have a picture today that we had 800 bottles of water delivered to us from a property management company because we said we could use it. But now how do we give it out? It's a donation, but we will give it out. So you can't do it that way. The other way is, out of those 43 guest congregations, guess what? There's a lot of laborers and those in need who are coming in. So we just have to adapt. You're always trying to adapt to what you need to do. How do you evangelize? Well, guess what? They're coming in our doors, so why can't we just give it to them rather than going out? One of the most powerful experiences of my life there in ministry was we went to, and Cheryl was there, delivering items to one of the women's camps. And there's 8 people in each of these small, and they have to pay, 300 dirhams, but I didn't know how that would translate into rand. But but they have to pay for this sub-level accommodation. And Reverend Andrew said, Father, would you say something to the women? I'm going, what do I have to say? What can I say of anything worth anything to these women? And so the only thing I could think of was, thank you. Thank you, because you've probably not thanked. I mean, and several of them began crying, and then I felt terribly guilty, because I'm making women cry. But then we realized that they've been here however many years, and no one has ever thanked them for all the work that they do for all of us to make this work. So you can imagine you were in a place for 5 years, and someone finally says, thank you. That blew me away. It's like I thought it was almost a throwaway thing, because surely people have thanked them, but no, they haven't, because they're disposable. And some of those women also put up with a lot of abuse. Some are even forced to, or at least coerced. If you don't, do me a favor, then we're going to fire you, or other things.
The interfaith, do you have an interfaith movement, especially with what is happening in the world? Are you able to speak against really the Palestinian issue and Israeli issue?
Yeah, we have to be careful, but UAE is strongly on the stand, on the Palestinians, and that's it. So we can pray, and we can pray for the end of the conflict there and the children who are being impacted. And we can send money through our diocese to them, and which we try to. And we try to go once a year, Cheryl and I do, to I hate the term solidarity because it seems overly used, I guess, but you try to be there for people, even though we're torn, because you're also supporting by going there with your tourist, dollars, that type of thing. The first time we went was right after October 7th, and the border agent, she looked at us, because what do you say? You're not going there for business. We said tourist. He said, tourist? And banged her, like, what are you talking about? Why are you coming here now? I said, because we love the people. We love the Palestinians. We love our hearts are broken because of the children dying. So we can, but you have to be very careful. You want to make sure you're on the right side, because you try to stay out of politics. Even politics we try to stay out of, but let's be honest too. I mean, starving children is political as well, but still, it's a humanitarian, and they're dying. So we can say and we can pray for those things. We just have to be careful, because they don't want you to enter into politics. But we have a lot of interfaith because of the complexes together. They have an Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi, a Muslim. They have a Jewish temple, a synagogue. There, and also a church, all in one complex. So they push those type of things, but they even have to be very careful because they're kind of with the government too, of what you say and don't say. We try to stay out of politics, which is actually kind of freeing for me after, because if I were in the U.S., my wife would be getting arrested at various times. She's an old-time protester, and it's her, but it's part of her. But here we have to be very careful with it. Just don't say anything political, really. Just stay out of it. And they don't ask my opinion either. Go figure. It surprises me. Not asking my advice. What else? Well, these are good questions.
Yes, Father, I would like to know, in your own congregation, what sort of segments do you have? For example, ordinarily, like in my own diocese, in a congregation, there would be Mothers Union, youth, and different church guilds. Is that the kind of thing that we have then?
Yeah, we have those groups. The diocese is trying to get Mothers Union started in the diocese, but we have a women's group already. It just wasn't called. Yeah, and there's a knitting group. They brought Tracy Muir Enter runs the sound and all of this for all this. He's in our parish, but they brought hats that a lot of the women knit or blankets, and they've gone all over the world, Sri Lanka, and they'll take it there. So it's a wonderful ministry. We don't have as many as maybe others because ours, we're always, there's this churn, we would say, a turnover. So how do you get someone doing something and then they leave, but it's again, so how do you create this leadership development? It's like, if you're in a lot of churches, I used to be at, you got them there for maybe 10 years or longer. You don't have to worry about that. Here, it's like, we just got that done, and then they leave.
And in your parish, are you the only priest or?
Yes. It's probably one too many, some people think.
Taking service on Sunday.
He's actually a Mission to Seafarers, or used to be, if you're familiar with Mission to Seafarers, to Reverend Nelson. He's an Indian background. He's a little bit hard for some people to understand, but there's a lot of Indians in our congregation because of being where our location is. But that's always good as a parish priest. You don't want them to be that loved. They want them to miss you. So, we couldn't understand the parish. Oh, that's good. I'm sorry, because you want them to look forward to it. But no, it's the only, now we could use more, but those are challenges we have. A lot of people, there's a lot of retiree priests in Cyprus, but I don't need them as much, and very few for us. Yes?
Thank you. I understand that countries is one of the Arabic countries.
Yeah, the UAE.
Many of the Arabic countries, Christian belief are not allowed.
Yeah, that's true. Like Saudi, for example, that's true. But not in the other countries in the Gulf, it is allowed. Now you have to be like a trade license or be officially recognized to do it, although there's underground. In Saudi, what happens is they go to the British consulate general or the embassy and will meet because that's embassy grounds, that type of thing. But no, in the Gulf, at least, it may not be true, parts of Africa, too, but they tend to have a strong belief in tolerance and their respect. And fortunately, there's a history of Christians doing a lot of good work. Well, we also have Yemen, by the way, in Oman, and Yemen is a good example, is when they were coming through the Houthi and all this, they were burning all the churches because this is anathema. But the people stopped them from destroying Christ Church at Hayden because it had a clinic, an eye clinic in Ras Morbat, and they basically said, no, they're helping us. These are our people. The same thing with the UAE. One reason why we could worship freely is back the rulers. It's changing now. The rulers are basically they're getting older and they're dying. But so we're getting a new generation. But a lot of those rulers were born in a hospital in Elaine, established by Protestant missionaries however many years ago, maybe even 100 years ago now, or 75 at least. But there was a high infant mortality rate. So guess what? They're so thankful that Christians came in and saved their children and saved them, that they're still alive. And so we think that was evangelism. You know, it's allowing us, and we build on that today. Some of the freedoms we have today is because of that hard work that these men and women did back then. So the Gulf is actually very good at welcoming Christians, as long as you jump through all the hoops. I've never had to jump through this many hoops ever, you know, in my life.
Your congregation, how are their employees about them celebrating Christmas on Christmas and Easter?
Well, some of them would allow, you know, but you have to take maybe official day off. Up until 3-4 years ago, we met on Friday. That was our main day of worship. And so on Easter, you'd had an early sunrise service. And I'm not really a morning person, so I'm glad that changed. You know, so, but Fridays was the established day of worship, and the UAE changed that. Now, most of the rest of the Gulf is still on a Friday schedule. That's their main day of worship. So our Good Friday type service would be big, and Easter would be not as big because you have to take a special day off. But most will respect it as long as you're taking the day off. It's not going to be guaranteed. But now, since it's the weekend, a lot more people could worship, except for swim meets, and you know, we're becoming like every other place. So what else? Any questions? I mean,
Lots of interreligious families.
the what?
Interreligious families. So in Cape Town particularly, it's a large Muslim population, and socially there's obviously a lot of engagement, you know, non-aggressive engagement. And a lot of families are integrated where the one partner is Muslim, the other one is Christian, and the children are either raised Muslim, mostly Muslim, but either Muslim or Christian. Do you find that a lot?
No. I mean, no.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I mean, there's a small population of Emiratis relative to the rest of the people.
They're a minority.
That they are a minority. I mean, if you talk about, you know, and Dubai is going to have fewer Emiratis than Fujairah, one of the other more outlying emirates, where it might be, or even Al Ain, which is an Abu Dhabi emirate, but they're off an hour away from there. They may have like up to 25% Emirati. But if you do, and it does happen occasionally, they would probably be expected to convert to Muslim, not the other way around. That would probably be anathema. In fact, I have to stay away from any Muslim. If a partner, I don't do interfaith marriage, not allowed to, basically. We even had a problem with the Druze. Are they Muslim or not? We defined that they weren't, but still, it was close enough that we wrestled with it. You just stay away from it. And I'll be honest with you too, if someone sends an email or gives a call and says, I'm Muslim, but I want to convert, I stay away from it. I mean, you may say I shouldn't, but at the same time, the cost of the risk is too high. Because if I do, and if it's a sting operation, if you will, you know, they could shut us down, and so we lose all rights and privileges. What I usually will end up saying is, well, first of all, you need to start coming to church, you know, on a regular basis, not out of the blue. I don't know you or anything, but even then, I'd be very, very cautious. Better be safe than sorry for being able to worship freely. And we do have freedom, which even the Muslims don't have. They have a set text they read on a Friday, while we can preach anything as long as we stay out of politics, basically. And we don't condemn other evangelicals. I don't say anything about them.
Yeah, so in terms of locating the church, is it now so easy to maybe look up the directory, maybe on the website? They now allow that.
Yeah, it's all on that. And I can put anything up on that, you know, as well, you know, because we're, I mean, I put up, you know, Jesus loves you, you know, I mean, I can, you know, what here. So, in a sense, you could say that's evangelism in a way, but it's not going outside in the same way either. We do a lot of music programs, I mean, because we have capability for that, and hosting different things. We hosted an what was it called? Intercultural celebration. We even had an Emirati soprano. Mezzo soprano. You know, she was amazing. She sang Ave Maria. Because guess what? There's a lot that they would share in our church, and it was part of to build up. And our church choir sang as well. So it was. There's a lot that we share. There are obvious differences, but it's also a way we can build relationships with them. Of see, we are honoring you. We're going to host our first evensong here in a few weeks, if all goes well. Because we have that capability, because we're fortunate, because we have some incredibly talented people. Oh, we have plenty of organists. I mean, we have like 5 organists at least. I mean, a lot of churches are searching for that, but we have one of the few organs in, and it was actually helped purchase. Paul Griffiths, he's the CEO of Dubai Airports, which is, he relaxes he's a world-class organist. He relaxes by playing the organ. I watch Netflix, I felt like a real slacker, but he'll play with us every Christmas. But he would play more often if he has time, and we would allow it. But we have plenty of organists because organists love. I mean, organists are weird people. They just love. Yeah, they love playing, and so that one will drive an hour from Abu Dhabi to be with us twice a month because of that. So we're able to do some incredible music, and that's a way to worship. Now, that's an area we're maybe having to change. We're looking at it carefully with the new national law, because is that worship in the same way? My theory is, as Anglicans, we value beauty in all of its forms, art, music, and so that's a way we worship God. So you can have a landscape, a painting, that could be a way to worship God, even though it's not a explicitly religious symbol. But are they going to redefine that? I think I have a good argument if it comes up. I'm not going to go ask them, because I treat the authorities the same way I treat my bishop. Unless I know the answer to the question already, I'm not going to ask you the question. Because if the bishop tells me no, I need to not do it. So it's better not to ask unless I know already. So but the same way with that, I'm not going to go to the CDA and ask, is it okay that we host this concert? A beautiful music, but not always, we've done some requiems and all, but to me that's beautiful music. But again, it's iffy that we don't charge for it, so that helps us. But again, as Anglicans, we love beauty in all of its forms. So I've already worked on my argument if we ever get called in and asked, why did you do this? Well, because it's how we worship. You just don't, because they didn't understand after COVID, Eucharist. We could not give out Eucharist. You know why? Because they defined it as food. Because you could not distribute food in a public like that. I'm going, it's not food, it's a religious, the Eucharist is different. I mean, yes, so how do you explain that to a Muslim so that they can understand that? It just didn't compute with them that, and by the way, we give a lot of food out. We're still debating those things. Do we need to do we have this debate now? I need to get special permission to collect all these items, because I want people to bring in things. I'd rather them, because especially the children, it's tangible. Bring in toothpaste, bring in rice, as opposed to just $1 donation or a rand or whatever, a dirham. But do we have to get a special license? So you have to jump through hoops. But the beautiful thing is you can worship God. And you can bear witness to Jesus, to people who are really even searching and longing for, they need hope. I may talk about that on Saturday, I used to put up a sign saying, all are welcome, but I changed that. Because in theory, that's true. All are welcome at God's table, but that's still too broad. So I changed it to you are welcome. And it's a subtle difference maybe, but people need to hear there's no one on earth like you, ever. I tell couples that when I do the marriage counseling. Your marriage is unique. Your marriage has never ever existed before in the entire history of the world. And if you were married to someone else, it'd be a different marriage. And the beauty of it, I tell them, I don't feel like a priest on these occasions, these 937 weddings. What I'm most like is, I really consider myself a midwife. And they usually laugh at that. But it's like, because we're helping to give birth to something new. new life, new creation, new birth, new beginning. It's like, and that thrills me every time I think about it, and helping them on their journey with Christ. Anything else? I think it's probably time to. Okay. Thank you for your time. So feel free to ask. Come visit. We love visitors.